August 16th, 2025. The U.S. Navy projects an image of overwhelming strength. With a nuclear carrier strike group confidently sailing into the Strait of Hormuz, the global economy's lifeblood. They trust that superior technology will ensure their dominance. But just beyond the horizon, Iran has patiently laid a trap, a dangerous weapon prepared for years, waiting for the perfect moment to detonate. At dawn, the sea erupts. A naval Pearl Harbor is reenacted, an oiler is ablaze, a destroyer's hull is breached. American sailors are thrown into the water in chaos. The hunter has become the hunted. But this is only the beginning. Just a few hours later, the skies above Hormuz roar with the sound of the world's most advanced fighter jets. And from the depths of the sea, Tomahawks launch, bringing America back from the brink. Will this opening blow deter Washington, or will it instead ignite a regional war beyond control? This is not a war that happened. It is a chilling simulation of what could explode if the planet's oil artery turns into a new Pearl Harbor. Hormuz and the threat from Tehran. August 16, 2025. The Strait of Hormuz, the choke point of the global economy, is as silent as a giant mirror's surface, but beneath that calm exterior, geopolitical tremors are about to erupt. Washington has just tightened oil sanctions, cutting off nearly all of the foreign currency that Tehran depends on. In Iran's parliament, a quick vote takes place. A majority of members raise their hands in support of the threat to close Hormuz. The declaration is broadcast that evening, like a cold knife slicing into the world's economic jugular. The reaction is immediate. Oil prices on the London Exchange surge to over $120 a barrel. International shipping companies immediately divert oil tankers around the coast of Oman or onto the Red Sea route, adding an entire week to their transit time. Stock markets in Tokyo and New York tremble, as if from a financial earthquake. The strait, a mere 50 kilometers long, controls nearly 20% of global oil trade. Suddenly, it has become a dagger held to the throats of all energy-dependent economies. The U.S. Navy doesn't stand by. The USS Air Rescue Carrier Strike Group is ordered to sail directly into Hormuz. The colossal 333-meter steel behemoth cuts through the waves in the darkness, its flight deck brightly lit for maintenance. On deck, more than 70 combat aircraft lie like giant spears, gray FA-18EF Super Hornets, EA-18G Growlers for electronic warfare, and E-2D Hawkeyes with their spinning disc radars. Within the ship's hull, twin nuclear reactors allow the 100,000-ton beast to operate continuously for 20 years without refueling. Accompanying the Truman are the Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, the backbone of the Aegis system. From their radar towers, the SPY-1 emits powerful electronic waves that can detect aircraft-sized targets from 300 kilometers away. Vertical launch tubes are filled with SM-6 missiles, versatile anti-aircraft weapons, 6.6 meters long, weighing nearly 1.5 tons, with a speed of Mach 3.5 capable of intercepting both aircraft and high-altitude ballistic missiles. Officers on the bridge believe that the Aegis shield is strong enough to create an impenetrable ring of steel. But just beyond the horizon, Tehran has prepared a deadly gambit. Along the coast of Hormozgan, in abandoned warehouses and marine-painted containers, dozens of Shahed-136 drones are hidden. These compact kamikaze machines, 3.5 meters long with a 2.5-meter wingspan, weigh less than 200 kilos but carry a 40 kilos high explosive warhead enough to tear apart a radar station or turn a ship's compartment into an inferno. They use a simple piston engine, reaching speeds of only about 185 km/h, but their advantage is flying extremely low, just a few dozen meters above the water's surface, making them nearly invisible to a strategic radar. Offshore, speedboats of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, are scattered in formation. The 12-meter-long Boghammer boats, equipped with 12.7mm machine guns and rocket launchers, can reach speeds of over 50 knots. Some boats are packed with explosives, turning them into manned torpedoes, ready to ram any target. In previous exercises, their swarm tactics had already confounded U.S. warships, as a single mistake could cost dozens of sailors their lives. On shore, mobile launchers containing Nor and Khalij Fair's anti-ship missiles are deployed. The Nor, a variant of the Chinese C-802, flies at subsonic speeds. with a range of 120 kilometers and a 165 kilometer warhead, powerful enough to take down a destroyer. Meanwhile, the Khalij Fars Iran's ace in the hole is a ballistic anti-ship variant, 9 meters long, with a range of 300 kilometers, flying at Mach 3. It descends from an altitude of tens of kilometers with a 650 kilo explosive warhead. American experts have long worried that in its terminal phase, this missile would be nearly impossible to intercept if launched in a salvo. And beneath the dark water, moored mines are ready. Each one contains 300 kilojoules of TNT, equipped with magnetic and acoustic sensors. A steel behemoth weighing thousands of tons only needs to enter a radius of a few dozen meters to trigger it. In modern warfare, mines had crippled U.S. warships in the Persian Gulf in 1991, and Iran fully understands the deterrent value of this silent weapon. From the deck of the USS Truman, American sailors can see the faint lights of Bandar Abbas City in the distance, unaware that inside those silent containers, the Shahed Iron Bees are ready, just like in 1941 at Pearl Harbor, when Japanese pilots prepared in silence before their sortie. A storm of fire is waiting to be unleashed. The opening salvo that shook America. 04:17 a.m. The surface of the Hormuz Strait is still, its gentle ripples reflecting the silver moonlight. On the deck of the USS Harry S. Truman, a few watch officers stare at their SPY-1 radar screens. The signal is empty, as if the entire sky is motionless, but they don't know that at that very moment. Inside Bandar Abbas port, dozens of green-painted containers lined up in rows are beginning to open. Inside, composite propellers start to spin, and the piston engines growl. Within seconds, the swarm of Shahed 136 drones bursts out, their 2.5-meter triangular wings spread wide, red navigation lights flickering. They fly so low that their shadows ripple on the water, at a speed of only about 185 kilometers. These kamikaze drones are not fast, but their advantage lies in their sea-skimming trajectory. U.S. radar, optimized to detect fixed-wing aircraft or ballistic missiles, now struggles to differentiate the small, faint targets from sea clutter. The sound of a chainsaw echoes through the night, a chilling harbinger of death. 05:01 a.m. The roar of speedboats erupts. From multiple directions, the IRGC's Bogue-Hammer boats race forward. Each one, just over 12 meters long, can carry 6 to 8 gunmen and is armed with 12.7mm DSHK machine guns or 107mm rocket launchers. Other boats, packed with explosives, are disguised as fishing vessels. They move at over 50 knots, creating fast-moving blips on the radar screen, forcing U.S. officers to split their fire control channels, unsure of which are decoys and which are real threats. And then, the main blow lands. From the coast of Hormuz, the Khalij Fars missiles are launched. A white trail of fire streaks across the sky, and the sound reverberates like a hammer blow. The Khalij Fars is Iran's unique anti-ship ballistic missile, 9 meters long, weighing nearly 3.5 tons, with a cruising speed of Mach 3. In its final phase, it plunges almost vertically, its 650 kilometer warhead capable of tearing a destroyer to shreds. Its infrared seeker allows it to lock onto targets despite electronic jamming. 05:04 a.m. Alarms blare across the American warships. Sailors rush to battle stations. The CIWS Phalanx spits out fiery streams of 20mm rounds, tearing up the sky near the ships. Some Shahed drones are ripped apart, but many more get through the volley, slamming directly into the secondary radar event of the USS Gravely. A sharp explosion erupts, flames shooting out from the high antenna. The ship shakes violently, and the officer on watch yells to cut power to the area. At the same time, a Khalij Fars breaks its trajectory and dives toward the sea. The SM-6 system launches into the sky, its active seeker locking onto the missile. But at Mach 3, just a few seconds of error can lead to catastrophe. The trail of fire slams directly into the side of the USNS supply oiler. A gigantic fireball erupts. Hundreds of fuel drums are blown to bits, turning the surrounding sea into a glowing inferno. The scene recalls the black and white photos of Pearl Harbor warships on fire, firefighters helpless, and the sky thick with attackers. The only difference is that this time, the tragedy is unfolding in a narrow strait, where every target is crowded into a few dozen square kilometers, turning Hormuz into a Pearl Harbor at sea. By 05:10 a.m., at least 2 more drones have breached the defenses, hitting the secondary flight deck of the USS Truman. While not enough to sink the massive ship, they cause an explosion that leaves a secondary fuel depot smoking. The entire fleet is plunged into a chaotic symphony, alarms blaring, internal speakers crackling, machine gun fire, and cries for help. In less than 15 minutes, Iran's surprise strategy had worked. The initial blow shattered the illusion of the US fleet's invincibility. The College Farce strikes the US fleet is on fire. 05:12 a.m. The Strait of Hormuz has become an inferno of steel and fire. Thick black smoke billows from the hull of the USNS Supply, and the smell of burning fuel spreads on the wind, blanketing the surrounding ships. American sailors scatter, many jumping into the sea to escape the flames. On the deck of the USS Gravely, Navy firefighters spray foam, trying to put out the blaze on the radar system that was just damaged by a Shahed 136 drone. With each passing minute, the situation grows more chaotic, exactly like the scenes from old films about Pearl Harbor. Inside the command center of the USS Harry S. Truman, alarms shriek. The radar operator yells as dozens of new blips appear on the screen. More drones are still coming, while IRGC speedboats close in from multiple directions. The Aegis combat system is pushed to its limits. The command to launch SM-6 missiles rings out, and the vertical launch tubes shudder. Each 1.5-ton missile leaps from the deck, leaving a trail of white smoke that cuts across the sky. The SM-6, America's most advanced anti-air missile, was designed to intercept both aircraft and high-altitude ballistic missiles. Its Mach 3.5 speed allows it to catch most targets. But when faced with low-flying, small-winged drones and overwhelmed by attacks from multiple directions, its effectiveness plummets. Some drones are shot down, exploding into small fireballs in the air, but too many slip through, speeding toward the warships crowded in the strait. At the same time, the CIWS Phalanx close-in defense system spits out a continuous barrage of rounds. Its 20mm Gatling gun, with a rate of fire of 4,500 rounds per minute, creates a dense rain of steel. On the USS Bulkley, the gun barrels glow white-hot and then red, sparks flying as they pour rounds into targets. A Shahed drone is hit, exploding right in front of the ship's bow. Shrapnel sprays like a hail of steel, injuring 3 sailors. But just moments later, another drone zips past, slamming into a communications antenna and severing radio contact for several critical minutes. On the southern flank of the formation, an R. Lee Burke-class destroyer takes a direct hit from a Noor missile launched from the coast. The subsonic, 6-meter-long missile penetrates the layers of defense and strikes the starboard side. The explosion creates a large hole, and seawater rushes into the compartment. The emergency flooding control system activates, but the ship still lists by almost 5 degrees. Sailors in the engine room race to close valves, but some are trapped as steel doors slam shut to isolate the flooded section. The sound of their pounding on the doors echoes, leaving their comrades choked with grief, unable to go back and save them. In the first few minutes, all illusions of the US fleet's impenetrable ring of steel are shattered. Officers who were once confident that the SPY-1 and SM-6 could block any threat now face a harsh reality. Overwhelming numbers and tactical surprise have far exceeded their predictions. The scene is no different from the morning of December 7, 1941, when the USS Arizona and USS Oklahoma were set ablaze at Pearl Harbor. The only difference is that this time, the victim is the force once considered invincible. The crew grits their teeth, performing 2 tasks in parallel, fighting back and performing rescue operations. On the USS Truman, medical teams converge on the secondary deck after the drone strike. The smoke's so thick, they have to wear gas masks. Burned sailors are pulled out, their clothes charred, their moans mingling with the roaring sound of the CIWS engines. The remaining sailors run fire hoses and form a line to pass medical kits. A giant machine, worth tens of billions of dollars, is now in a life-or-death emergency. The feeling of shock and awe the U.S. doctrine once used to overwhelm its enemies is now reversed. America itself has become the victim of a reverse shock and awe. The surprise attack leaves the entire fleet stunned. Senior officers on the Truman know that if they don't stabilize the situation quickly, the entire strike group could face a strategic disaster, losing control of Hormuz and, worse, losing their global prestige. In that moment, amid the fire and chaos, many American sailors must be thinking of the past. 84 years ago, Pearl Harbor woke up the entire country, turning surprise into ironclad resolve. Now, Hormuz could be repeating that very scenario, but with a completely different adversary. SM-6 CIWS and the counterattack from the USS Truman. 05:28 a.m. The fiery sea of Hormuz still billows with black smoke, but from the deck of the USS Harry S. Truman, the order to counterattack is given. The combat operations officer yells, "Launch the package immediately." Two FA-18E Super Hornets roar, their wings vibrating under the thrust of their F-414 GE-400 engines. Their takeoff speed soars, and a few seconds later, they launch off the deck in a white spray of steam from the catapult. These multi-role fighters carry AGM-88 HARM anti-radiation missiles, and JDAM smart bombs, ideal weapons for hunting radar and coastal missile launchers. Behind them, a pair of EA-18G Growlers follow, their AN, ALQ-2, and A-18 jamming antennas glowing on electronic screens. They fire powerful electronic pulses, scrambling Iran's radar waves and throwing the coastal air defense batteries into chaos. Soon after, an E-2D Hawkeye also leaves the deck. This all-seeing eye, with its AN APY-9 radar, has a scanning range of nearly 550 kilometers, forming an airborne command center that links all forces. 05:40 a.m., at an altitude of 12,000 meters, an MQ-9 Reaper quietly appears. This drone has a 20-meter wingspan, can fly continuously for 27 hours, and carries AGM-114 Hellfire missiles. From the control station on the USS Leyte Gulf, live data is transmitted, clearly marking the locations of active Nor and Khalij Fars launchers along Hormuzgan on a digital map. Each target's coordinates are marked in red, awaiting the order to fire. In the deep sea, a Virginia-class attack submarine silently opens its launch tubes at a depth of 90 meters. A sailor presses a button. The Tomahawks leave their tubes, a trail of fire erupting on the surface, then disappearing into the low sky. The Tomahawk, America's famous cruise missile, flies at a speed of nearly 880 km/h, with a range of over 1,600 kilometers, using GPS and Intercom guidance, with an accuracy of just a few meters. In its final phase, it skims just a few dozen meters above the ground, hugging the terrain to avoid radar. 06:03 a.m. A series of explosions rocks the coast of Hormuzgan. A fuel depot containing Nor warheads explodes, with flames shooting dozens of meters high and steel fragments raining down. Satellite images immediately confirm that 3 Khalij Fars launchers have been wiped out. Iranian soldiers in the defense area flee in a panic, unable to move the Mobile launchers in time. Meanwhile, from above, an MQ-9 Reaper fires 2 Hellfires, their tandem warheads piercing concrete shelters and taking out another hidden launch site. In the air, the Super Hornets continue to dive. An American pilot locks onto an Iranian radar site, releasing a GPS-guided JDAM GBU-31. The 900 kiloblu bomb descends, exploding with pinpoint accuracy within 10 meters of its coordinates. The radar goes dead, and the Iranian defense zone is plunged into chaos. The entire battlefield quickly turns into a kill box created by the US. From the sea, the sky, and the depths, attacks converge precisely on each coordinate. US officers call this a multi-domain strike, a multi-layered, multi-directional coordinated blow. After half an hour, at least 7 Iranian launchers are destroyed, and the remaining 4 Shahed drones are hunted down by the Reaper. On the deck of the USS Truman, cheers erupt as reports of victory pour in. From being caught off guard, the US fleet has regrouped and counterattacked with lightning speed. An officer exclaims, "Pearl Harbor only happens once. We won't let it happen again." The counterattack seems to be a reenactment of history. After Pearl Harbor in 1941, the US mobilized its entire potential to become a dominant power. Now, just a few hours after the naval Pearl Harbor at Hormuz, the US has proven it can turn a disadvantage into a launch pad for a destructive campaign. The Strait of Hormuz is still a place of fire and smoke, but the momentum has shifted. Iran launched a surprise attack, But America is the one who ultimately created a zone of fire and steel where every target is locked on and destroyed in a perfect kill box. Hormuz reenacted Pearl Harbor. 06:45 a.m. Smoke still billows over the surface of the Hormuz Strait, but the battle has completely changed. Red embers from the Khalid Fars missile depot, leveled by tomahawks, still flicker on the Hormuzgan coast. On the deck of the USS Harry S. Truman, officers gradually stabilize the formation. Sailors are still scrambling to rescue their comrades, patch holes, and extinguish fires, but their expressions have changed from panic to cold fury. The surprise attack that spilled American blood into the sea has become the catalyst that ignites their resolve. Iran had dreamed of a new Pearl Harbor, a surprise attack that could make Washington back down. But the lesson of history proves the opposite. In December 1941, Japan thought it could force the U.S. to the negotiating table by attacking Hawaii. Instead, America rose up, turning its entire industrial base into a war machine. And just 4 years later, Tokyo was reduced to ashes. In Hormuz, Iran made a similar mistake. Hitting a U.S. fleet didn't discourage them. It only spread a wave of rage throughout Washington. 07:30 a.m. At the Pentagon, the first report comes in. One oiler is out of action, a destroyer is heavily damaged, and there are several hundred casualties. The numbers are not large compared to historical naval battles, but they are enough to ignite a wave of public outrage in the U.S. News outlets universally call it the Hormuz Pearl Harbor. Congress immediately convenes an emergency session. Lawmakers from both parties, usually bitterly divided on many issues, now raise their hands in unanimous agreement. More fleets must be mobilized, and a full-scale retaliation is necessary. The news spreads around the world. Stock markets reel, and oil prices soar past $140 a barrel. NATO allies immediately voice their support, promising logistical assistance. In Bahrain, the U.S. Fifth Fleet is on full alert. In the Mediterranean, the USS Eisenhower Strike Group is ordered to move. In the Atlantic, the USS Gerald R. Ford prepares to transit the Suez Canal. The entire global fleet is being pulled toward the Middle East, just as the U.S. mobilized forces to the Pacific in 1941. Tehran realizes too late that its strategy of a preemptive strike to prevent war has backfired. Instead of forcing the U.S. to withdraw, they have pushed Washington into a position where there is no choice but to escalate. Within Iran, voices calling for de-escalation are quickly drowned out by generals who believe they can hold Hormuz with blood. But the imbalance of power is too clear. A single nation is now facing the world's #1 military superpower. In strategic analyses, many U.S. experts have pointed out that this attack is not just a military failure for Iran, but a historical strategic blunder. If Pearl Harbor changed the entire course of World War II, Hormuz now risks becoming the flashpoint for a regional or even global war, because in an age of globalization, not just the US, but also Europe, Japan, South Korea, and China all depend on the oil that passes through the strait. Once Hormuz becomes a battlefield, the economic consequences will ripple across the planet. 08:15 a.m. At sea, the U.S. fleet has restored order. Sailors with white bandages wrapped around their arms continue to load missiles onto launchers. On the deck of the Truman, Super Hornet pilots sit in their cockpits, ready for the next sortie. A different atmosphere now prevails, no more panic, only cold anger. Officers know well that every great American battle begins with a sudden tragedy and ends with total dominance. But beneath the statistics of damaged ships and exploding missile depots, a human truth is easily forgotten: the pain of people caught in the crossfire. On the decks of American ships, young sailors cry while pulling their wounded comrades from the inferno. On the Iranian coast, civilian families huddle with their children, trembling as they hear the echoes of explosions from the weapons depot just a few kilometers from their homes. If the Hormuz scenario truly happened, the consequences would not just be a shift in the regional balance of power, but a wound that spreads globally: soaring oil prices, a struggling economy, and millions of families from Asia to Europe and the US paying the price for a war they never wanted. And that is the final lesson from a repeated Pearl Harbor: at Hormuz technology can destroy an aircraft carrier in minutes. But only human wisdom and humanity can preserve peace. All content above is a work of simulation, hypothesis, strategy, and analysis. It is not intended to incite violence, promote political bias, or instigate military conflict or war. The content is for hypothetical simulation and personal analysis only. Any misinterpretation will not be accepted. We are not responsible for any understanding or application of the content within this video. Viewers should independently evaluate, verify, and receive the information selectively. Thank you very much for staying with us until the end. If you are passionate about the military and enjoy analysis and proposing hypotheses, please stay with our channel. If you found this video interesting, please click like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our daily updates. Now, you can watch some of our latest and most popular videos currently on the screen. Goodbye and see you in the next video.